Welcome back to my channel. Today we're looking at biology paper 1 in October-November 2018. So let's begin. Let's see what the first question says. It says, a cell is observed under a microscope. Which feature identifies it as a plant cell? So we're going to just go through all of the options and then see which one fits the question. The cell contains a single large sap vacuole. Yes, because in animals there are there is a temporary vacuole. It doesn't have a big large sap vacuole. So this can be the answer. Contain glucose and amino acids. No, those are in animals too. Stored fat, and these are all in animals as well. So we're just going to be talking about this. Which statement about diffusion are correct? So what is diffusion? Diffusion is the transfer of particles from a region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration along the concentration gradient. So molecule move from a higher to lower concentration. Yes, so these cannot be the options. Only occurs within living systems. No, it can happen in both living as well as non-living. Rate slows down as the temperature increases. As the temperature increases, the rate it should increase. So it looks like B. Moving on towards question number 3. The diagram shows the root hair cell and surrounding soil particles. Osmosis occurs when regions of higher and lower concentration of water molecules are separated by a partially permeable membrane. On the diagram, what are these regions? Okay, so since water enters from higher concentration to lower concentration, so it has to enter from soil and into the root cells. So higher concentration of water molecules should be in 1. Partially permeable membrane is 3, because first it comes cell wall and then we have cell membrane. So it has to be 1, 3, and then we have low concentration in 4. So it's B. What are enzymes? Enzymes, you have to understand the fact that enzymes are protein in nature. So these are not fat. These are like out. Enzymes are proteins that act as biological catalyst. Yes. Some organisms live at the bottom of the sea where it is very dark. To synthesize glucose, they use energy from chemicals in the very hot water that comes out of volcanoes. What is a distinguishing feature of these organisms? Okay. So what we know is, they're synthesizing glucose. They're manufacturing their own food by using energy from chemicals in the very hot water. That means they do not. To synthesize glucose, they do not have to be green, because we know usually plants need to be green. They need to have chlorophyll, because that traps sunlight energy and converted into chemical energy, which is later stored in the glucose molecules. But here they're living in dark. There is no light, and they're not green, so they do not need to be green. They can, even if they're not green, they can still manufacture glucose. Moving on to question number 6. An experiment is set up as shown. The volume of gas is measured after 30 minutes. The experiment is repeated several times. Each time the light intensity is increased. Okay. Usually this is something. It's a trick to solve these kind of questions. When there are graphs related to temperature, it always has to be something of this sort. But if it's related to photosynthesis, for example, any factor, carbon dioxide, light intensity, then it has to be like this, because this shows that till this point, light intensity is a limiting factor. After this, there's another factor which can be carbon dioxide, which can be presence of chlorophyll or anything of that sort. That becomes the limiting factor. But till this point, light intensity is the limiting factor. So C looks like the best answer. Moving on towards question number 7. The diagram represents a cross section of part of a leaf. How does the oxygen content of the air at X compare to the normal atmospheric when the leaf in the light and when it is in the dark? Okay, again, we know in the day, like when there's sun outside, the stomata is open and it is actively photosynthesizing, producing oxygen, releasing oxygen. So oxygen, obviously, it goes in the this releases oxygen, it goes into these air spaces. So in daylight it is higher, but in the dark it is lower. The reason being, it's because at night the stomata closes. So when the stomata closes, it is no longer photosynthesizing, but it is only respiring. So it is using up all the oxygen. So it looks like A, 7A. Moving on towards question number 8. What are the smaller basic units that make up glycogen and protein? Again, we know glycogen is made up of glucose, and then we have, so it was like glycogen is a polysaccharide, and polysaccharides are not made up of disaccharides, they are made up of many monosaccharides, and all of them, we have glycogen, we have starch and cellulose, all of these are made up of just glucose molecules. So it is made of glucose molecule, and this is amino acids. Moving on towards question number 9. Which pathway provides humans with the most fiber in the diet? It's very beneficial for us to feed directly on plants, because there are no energy losses. There are no energy, like significant energy losses in plants, or neither. So it's like there are, since food chains, they start with plants, so a large amount of energy is transferred from the plants to the primary consumer. So when we're eating plants, we are acting as primary, like the primary consumer. But if there is an animal which is feeding on plants, then we're gonna be acting as secondary consumers. So there are gonna be energy losses in the animal as well, and then little amount of energy will be transferred to us. So with the most fiber, then that means we have to feed directly on this. Here you can see cow is feeding on grass, chicken is feeding on maize plant, and then there's gonna be a big. So as as the trophic levels increases, the energy transfer increases as well. The energy transfer decreases as well, because cow uses energy for locomotion, cell division, and all of these kind of things. A gland secretes different types of enzymes into part of the alimentary canal, which allows digestion of protein and starch. It also receives alkaline secretions from another gland and contains muscles that are used in peristalsis. Which part of alimentary canal is being described? Okay. So since they're saying that it is a gland that is secreting that secretes different type of enzyme, it is part of alimentary canal, which allows digestion of protein and starch. So this is stomach, right? And in stomach there is no digestion of starch, so this is wrong. This is pancreas. Pancreas never allows digestion to occur in itself. What pancreas does is that it secretes pancreatic juices that travel in the duodenum and all. So this is duodenum, and in duodenum the remaining digestion that was unable to be completed in the mouth and the stomach, it is finished off in the duodenum. So pancreas, it secretes pancreatic juices that flow into duodenum. Then we have the liver that secretes bile that is transported to the duodenum as well. So there the remaining digestion occurs. What is not a function of transpiration? It causes minerals to travel up through the plant. This is function. Causes water from the roots to the leaves. It helps to release energy in cells. No. Reason being, because what transpiration does is that all it does is help transport water and mineral salts from the root to stems and leaf. That is it. That is the only function transpiration does. The rest of it is not related to transpiration. Moving on to with question number 12. The diagram shows part of a tree trunk. A ring of bark including the phloem has been removed. The tree will eventually die because removing the bark stops the transfer of mineral salts to the leaves. Even the phloem has been removed, but this part is still remaining, and that means that xylem is still in contact with the leaf plant, and xylem's function is to transfer water and mineral salts from the stems and leaf, and that is being done. organic nutrients to the roots, yes. Since they have clearly mentioned that phloem has been removed, that means it is no longer translocating sucrose and amino acid solutions from the leaves to other parts of the plant. Therefore, it will die. Which of these organs will receive blood from both an artery and a vein? Kidney? No. Kidney only receives blood from renal artery. Then we have liver. Yes, liver is getting blood from hepatic portal vein, which is rich in glucose and amino acids from the small intestine, and then at the same time it's receiving blood from hepatic artery as well. Lung, no. So liver plays a significant role. Moving on to question number 14. The diagram shows the section to the human heart, which suggests that the blood leaves the heart at different pressures when going to the lungs and to the body. Chambers R and S have different volumes. Volume does not have to do anything with the force that blood is being pumped to the lungs. It's about these walls. The reason, since they have this has the thickest walls, because this has to pump with so much force that it can actually push the blood out of the heart and to the whole body, while these are thin walls because this has to transport blood to lungs, and lungs are at a very short distance from the heart. The walls of the atria are thinner than the walls of the ventricles. Again, no, because we are not the only thing they're asking is to the lungs and to the body. That means they're asking for this wall and this wall, like the walls of both the ventricles. It doesn't have to do anything with the walls of the atrium and the walls of the ventricle, because they're asking when going to the lungs and when going to the body. So when going to the lungs, it is right ventricle, and when going to the body, it is left ventricle. So we have to compare the walls of both these ventricles. Valves, no. Wall T is more muscular than wall U. Yes, now they are actually comparing the walls of the ventricles. The diagram shows chemicals being exchanged between some cells and blood capillary. What is P and what is since this is a blood vessel, a capillary that is coming in close contact. Since this is the capillary which is formed by branching of our aorta and then arterioles and all of that. So aorta that left the heart with oxygenated blood. So obviously this contains oxygen and glucose, and since these are cells that were respiring, so they're gonna reduce carbon dioxide and water as waste product. So there's gonna be this flow. Moving on to question number 16. How many molecules of carbon dioxide will be produced from the breakdown of 2 molecules of glucose in aerobic respiration? So let's just write down the equation. Okay, so I have the equation written for aerobic respiration, and they're saying 2 molecules of glucose. So if I have 2 molecules of glucose here, then we're just gonna see balance. We're gonna balance this, and they're asking for the molecules of carbon dioxide. So there are like 12. 2 to the 12. There are 12 carbons here. That means there have to be 12 carbons here. I suppose this is the answer. It's pretty simple. How does anaerobic respiration in muscle cells cause a reduction in blood pH? If there's a reduction in blood pH, that means there was something acid that was in the blood or anything. So lactic acid, because during anaerobic respiration in muscles, there is lactic acid being produced that diffuses into the blood and lowers down the pH. Which row shows the event that occurs to cause air flow into the lungs? So when there has to be, inhalation, fresh arrangements are being made in our lungs. The internal intercostal muscles, they relax. The external intercostal muscles contract. The ribs, they move upward and outwards, and it is flattened as well, so that I can, create a very greater volume. So because when you create a greater volume, the pressure decreases, and since like a law of physics that everything moves from a higher concentration to a lower concentration, there's always the flow of things from high to low. So if the pressure is lower inside our body and the pressure of the air is greater outside, then there's going to be an inflow of air from the outside environment and into our lungs. Why is it important that the lungs remove carbon dioxide from the body? Because carbon dioxide is a very it's a metabolic waste product. So it's going to be B. Which structures are all involved in controlling human body temperature? Blood vessel near the skin surface, the cerebellum, and the sweat glands. No. Blood vessels near the skin. Blood vessels they do, and the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is that that registers a change in temperature, and skeletal muscles. Yes. So this looks like B. Moving on to question number 21. The diagram shows the eye viewed from the front and its lens in cross section. Which diagram shows the appearance of the pupil in the shape of the lens when looking up at the sky at night? Okay, so there are two things. When looking up at the sky at night, that means we're gonna have to see two things. First, when you're looking at a very far object, then the ciliary muscle they relax, the lens it becomes very thin, so it has to be this. And as for the darkness, when we at night there's little light around us, so our pupil kind of dilates to allow more entry to more light to enter into our eyes. So the pupil dilates. So it's going to be 2 and 4. What is a major function of the medulla in the brain? Okay, so what medulla does is it's responsible for all of the involuntary action that we cannot control. For example, breathing, peristalsis, and also this contraction of the diaphragm. We cannot control this as well. So it's going to be there. Which statement about insulin is correct? Insulin converts glycogen to glucose. No, it converts glucose to glycogen. It is broken down by the liver. It is secreted by the liver. It increases blood glucose levels. No, it so basically, when our blood glucose concentration rate increases, insulin is secreted by the pancreas. So it is not secreted by the liver. It is secreted by pancreas and converts excess glucose into glycogen so that they can be stored as glycogen stores. And so this is wrong as well, because then that helps decrease the glucose level in our body. That's why when a diabetic person is suggested to have an insulin injection so that excess glucose in their body can be converted to glycogen. Moving on to question number 24. Since this question wasn't a part of 2023 syllabus, so now going with it. The graph shows the effect of 4 different antibiotics on the growth of population of bacteria. Which of these statements is correct? Before I read these statements, I'm gonna just have a quick look at this. It can be seen for 10 hours. After 10 hours, the highest activity, let's just see it till 10 for now. The one which is the strongest and the most effective is antibiotic X, and then we have W, then we have Y, and then we have Z. Because more steeper the line is, the more effective it is. And then after 10 more hours, after 20 hours, we can see that it's the same thing. More, and then it's the same, and then here we can see it was effective for a greater time, and then it decreased, same. So let's see. Antibiotic W is more effective than antibiotic X against these bacteria after 10 hours. After 10 hours, yes. So after 10 hours, you can see antibiotic W, it killed 100 and this killed 75. So it's like a greater difference. So this is more effective than this. But before then, obviously, antibiotic X was faster than W. Antibiotic X is more effective than antibiotic Y against these bacteria. Well, yes, because you can see even before, from 0 to 40 hours, even for whole 40 hours, antibiotic X had a greater and a more steeper line than antibiotic Y throughout the whole graph. Antibiotic Z is most effective. No, so it's 1 and 2. Moving on to question number 26. Yeast is used in the production of which materials? Alcohol? Yes. Bread? Yes. Cheese? Nope. Yogurt? Nope. These two, bacteria. These two, yeast. Some stages in the production of yogurt are listed. Okay. So apparently, first what we're gonna do is we're gonna pasteurize the liquid, right? And then we're gonna add the bacteria, and then bacteria are gonna release enzymes and all. They're gonna be need to kept constant at they're gonna be need to be kept at a very constant temperature for effective activity, for because that's going to be an optimum temperature for the best enzyme activity. So it has to be 4, and then we're going to add bacteria, then we're going to have to keep it at 40 to 45, and then we're going to cool it. So it's going to be D. Which organisms always obtain their energy from dead organic matter? It says always. They have highlighted this word always. That leaves us with no other option than decomposers. Moving on towards question number 29. The diagram shows part of a food web. Which pyramid of numbers is based on this food web? So there's, many students confuse themselves with pyramid of numbers. All you gotta do is, let me just make it very simple. So it's like there's a single tree, right? I have tree, and then I have, let's say, ladybugs. And then I have, let's say, any bird. So I have a single tree. Now a single tree, it's very huge and like with so many leaves and all. So ladybug. Now this ladybug has a very small size and hence less energy requirement. But the tree can fulfill the energy requirements of many ladybugs. So many ladybugs can feed on the tree because ladybug needs a very small amount of tree, but tree can fulfill the energy requirements of many ladybugs. Now bird. Now comes the bird. Now bird is a bigger animal. That means the energy requirement is greater as well. So to fulfill their energy requirement, they have to feed on more ladybug. A small amount of birds have to feed on larger number of ladybugs to fulfill their energy requirements. So a less number of, because birds are greater in number, they have a greater size, hence their energy requirement is going to be great as well. Which pyramid of numbers is based on this food web? So there's going to be a single tree, and then there are going to be many aphids, caterpillars and all, then there are going to be ladybugs. So as far as I think, it's gonna be A. Reason being, because it's gonna be one tree and that can fulfill the energy requirements of many aphids, caterpillars, snails, and slugs because they're smaller in size, and then becomes thrushes and hedgehogs, which are relatively larger in size. So they're gonna less hedgehogs and thrushes have to feed on greater number of these to fulfill their energy requirement, and then again even greater go. Which labeled arrow in the nitrogen cycle represents nitrogen fixation? Nitrogen fixation is when nitrogen in the air is converted back into nitrates and all. So where it's nitrogen in the air to nitrogen in plants, that is pretty simple. So it's 38. Moving on towards question number 31. Which type of organism is the vector of the parasite that causes malaria? It has to be C. Reason being, because vector is a mosquito that can transmit diseases from one person to another person. So a mosquito is an insect. Why are insecticides sometimes regarded as pollutants? Okay, they can increase the number of bacteria in ponds and rivers. This does not count as pollutants. They can increase the rate of growth of water plants. Again, this does not count as pollutant. They can kill a wide range of insects. Yes, pollutant is something that can harm the environment, and that they're gonna kill a lot of insects in there, and that's gonna decrease the biodiversity. What is an advantage of sexual reproduction over asexual reproduction? It allows growth of the species. No, it produces offspring more quickly. No, this is relatively a slower process than this. It produces offspring with different characteristics. Yes, because this involves the fusion of gametes. So there are going to be more, different characteristics and more variations at all. What are two male parts of a flower? So we have filament and anther. Which row shows the disease and the pathogen that causes it? AIDS is caused by a virus, HIV. This is wrong. This is wrong. Malaria is caused by, yes. Well, actually, this is D, sorry. Because insect is not a pathogen. Insect is a vector. So if they had written it, a vector that causes, a vector that transmits it, then it has to be this. But they have written pathogen, then that means bacterium. The table gives the average dietary requirements of iron in mg per day for females and males of various ages. Why does a 20-year-old female require the highest? Because she is menstruating and therefore she and hence loses a lot of blood. What is the primary function of DNA? DNA controls the production of protein. Simple. So it's like something of this sort, and they're gonna have different nucleotide bases, phosphate groups and all, and they're gonna just control protein production. In the ABO blood group system, which genotype is a homozygous dominant? Since homozygous, that means they have to be the same. So these cannot be, it has to be either of these two. But they are saying, first part says homozygous, that means they're gonna be the same, these are out. Then they say dominant, this is only for recessive, so it's gonna be this. Diagram shows a family in which some members suffer from a disease caused by a recessive allele. Okay, so many students confuse themselves in these kind of questions, so I'm just gonna make it pretty simple. So we have recessive allele. So let's see those who suffer from a disease. We have the colored one. So these three are suffered from a disease. That means if they are suffering from a disease, since it is caused by recessive allele can only express itself in homozygous gene combination. So let's say we have these. Understood? Because since it is caused by recessive allele can only express itself in homozygous gene combination. So they're gonna be the same. Now, what about these? You must be wondering, what do we write? Can I write AA or AA? I don't know. Let me tell you. You can see the offsprings produced from these two, or both of them are white. That means both of them are without the disease. So we have to come up with something. Let's start off with AA, right? So we have AA, then we have AA. This shows that half of them will have disease, half of them will not have disease, and then if this was the case, then one of them would have been colored and one of them would have been white. But both of them are white, that means none of them have the disease. Then don't you think it's gonna be this? Because this will give me all without the disease, and this clearly represents all of them without the disease. So this is AA. So then it's gonna be A because we just figured it out. Now let's figure out this, and this is gonna be AA as well. Now we're gonna just find out this, and this shows again, as I clearly said. Now these two boxes represent that half of them has disease and half of them do not have disease. So AA, 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 AA. This is gonna be this. Which two members of the family must be heterozygous? So you can see now since we have filled all of these, this is heterozygous, so it's 5 and 7. Moving on towards question number 40, which statement is correct? Evolution, actually, no. Evolution, there's this whole process where it says there are gonna be variations, then there are gonna be mutation, there are gonna be variation, then that's gonna result in natural selection, and that most of them are gonna just perish, and then it's gonna lead to evolution. So natural selection results in evolution. This is the answer. So pretty simple. So this marks the end of our P1. So if you have any queries or any question regarding anything, then you can leave a comment and I'll answer that. Thank you.